Donald Trump often tries to project an image of toughness and strength, but the reality tells a very different story. Lately, he's been showing clear signs of decline, both mentally and physically, and it's becoming harder for him to hide. From slurred words to confused statements to late-night social media outbursts, the cracks are obvious, and after Governor Wes Moore once again pointed out Trump's health struggles, Trump completely lost it online. We'll break down everything that happened, including his early morning rant on Truth Social, but first, a quick reminder, if you're enjoying this content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep bringing you these updates. Now, before we dive into Trump's latest meltdown, let's talk about someone who's been calling out his weakness for a long time, California Governor Gavin Newsom.
You have the largest private police force in the world. When they're done with this, all that funding and that big, beautiful portrayal allows more resources for this private police force that increasingly is showing a tendency not to swear an oath to the Constitution, but to the President of the United States. And he'll be sending them to voting booths and polling places all across this country. This is a real and serious moment in U.S. history. And by the way, I say that as an American, not as a Democrat. Every Republican should be ashamed about this and scared to death about not just these authoritarian tendencies, but these authoritarian actions by the president. He is weak. He's weakness masquerading as strength, and that makes him more dangerous than most people believe.
Donald Trump has never shown any real strength, and certainly no genuine will to govern. In some ways, it's fortunate he isn't focused on serious policy, because when he does take action, it often ends up harming the country rather than helping it. The truth is, Trump has never been about long-term solutions. He avoids the hard work and real planning that leadership requires. That's why he failed to address issues like crime in Washington, D.C. It takes dedication and serious strategy, something we've seen Democratic governors and mayors actually commit to. Governor Wes Moore called Trump out on this very clearly. And that's what sparked Trump's latest late-night meltdown online.
So here in D.C., there are guardsmen from 6 different states on the street. The mission is, quote, beautification, duty, and support. The defense secretary has authorized them to carry M4 and M17 rifles, but to date, we have not been able to locate anyone armed within the National Guard on the streets of D.C. Why, though, are you so opposed to this deployment?
Well, there's plenty of reasons. One, it is not sustainable. You cannot continue this type of pace of operations, particularly when it's costing over $1 million a day in order to do this. The second, it's not scalable. You're not going to be able to do this in every single major American city, particularly when many of the cities that have the highest crime rates are the places that have actually deployed their National Guards to Washington, D.C. So who's going to go do the work in their cities? The third, it's unconstitutional. It's a direct violation of the 10th Amendment, and if for a party that talks about state rights, it's amazing how they're having such a big government approach in the way they're conducting public safety. The fourth reason is because it's deeply disrespectful to the members of the National Guard. As someone who actually deployed overseas and served my country in combat, to ask these men and women to do a job that they're not trained for is just deeply disrespectful. And so when we're thinking about all of these lasting factors, when we're thinking about the fact that it serves as a distraction from the fact that the president's disastrous economic policies are making everything more expensive for everyday Americans, is making life harder for everyday Americans, there is a multitude of reasons that I am against this, and I will not authorize the Maryland National Guard to be utilized for this.
There is no need for the assault on D.C. that is currently happening at the direction of Donald Trump, at the direction of Stephen Miller. This is unnecessary, but of course, it is just a stunt. Now, it's not a stunt that we should call a distraction. Say the mainstream media needs to cover something else. No, it is a stunt for Donald Trump to pretend like he cares about crime. Of course, he does not. Donald Trump wants to use this as a precedent to go into Baltimore, to go into Chicago, to go into Milwaukee, to go into Detroit or Atlanta. He is using this as a part of a plan he is rolling out to continue to take over our government and use it to serve himself and serve his billionaire buddies, because that is all Donald Trump is ever after. He is not strong or tough. The man can't even go on a walk in Baltimore. And it's not because he's scared of the crime, it's because he just can't walk. Donald Trump's decline is another example of how pathetic and weak he is. And that's why Wes Moore calling it out had Trump posting this last night. Trump rages at Nemesis being disrespectful about his memory in Late Night Meltdown. Donald Trump spent the early morning hours digging up year-old dirt on his newest political enemy and bashing him on social media. Wes Moore of Maryland has become the latest Democratic governor to take on Trump over his partisan gerrymandering and his threats to deploy the National Guard to blue states, inviting the president last week to walk the streets of Baltimore with him. Trump responded over the weekend with a social media rant in which he threatened to pull federal funding from Baltimore, leading the governor to mock the president's physical ability and lack of military service. In response, Trump made the bizarre claim on Monday that the governor had called him the greatest president of his lifetime. On Wednesday, Moore slammed Trump's absolutely comical memory, a comment that apparently left the 79-year-old president still angry hours later. Just after 2 a.m. Washington time on Thursday, Trump reposted a year-old article from The Hill about Moore apologizing for mistakenly claiming on a 2006 White House fellowship application that he had received a Bronze Star. But is that the end of his political career? He was very disrespectful to the office of the president. Trump complained in a Truth Social post. The New York Times reported in August 2024 that Moore, a U.S. Army veteran who deployed to Afghanistan from August 2005 to March 2006, had listed the Bronze Star in his application despite having never received the reward. Moore, who received several other honors, including the National Defense Service Medal, said it was an honest mistake and claimed he had included the honor at the encouragement of a senior officer who recommended him for the Bronze Star. My deputy brigade commander felt comfortable with instructing me to include the award on my application for the fellowship because he received confirmation with the approval authority that the Bronze Star was signed and approved by his senior leadership. Moore wrote in a statement posted to social media in the military, "There is an understanding that if a senior officer tells you that an action is approved, you can trust that is a fact." Later, he was saddened to learn that he had not received the Bronze Star. He wrote, "The commander in question confirmed the version of events to the Times. Donald Trump, who's long been criticized for avoiding service, is now attacking Governor Wes Moore simply because Moore pointed out Trump's visible struggles with walking. It's clear that Moore has struck a nerve and Trump just can't let it go." As always, Trump falls back on petty personal attacks in an effort to intimidate his critics. But the truth is, that only highlights his own weakness. This latest attempt hasn't gone the way he hoped, because in Washington, D.C., people simply aren't buying into Trump's rhetoric or his desperate jabs at leaders like Governor Moore.
There's a video you may have seen of a guy named Sean Dunn, a former Department of Justice staffer and Afghanistan veteran, who lost his temper and threw a Subway sandwich at a federal agent while protesting Donald Trump's takeover of the Capitol.
Another
That happened earlier this month. Dunn was initially detained and then released. Now, I think it is not a good idea to throw sandwiches at people. I don't think Dunn should have done that. But the response to the sandwich throwing incident from the White House wasn't just disproportionate. It was absolutely unhinged.
An individual went up to one of the federal law enforcement officers and started jumping up and down, screaming at him, berating him, yelling at him. And then he took a Subway sandwich about this big and took it and threw it at the officer. He thought it was funny. Well, he doesn't think it's funny today because we charged him with a felony, assault on a police officer. And we're going to back the police to the hilt. So there, stick your Subway sandwich somewhere else.
According to local news report, Dunn repeatedly tried to turn himself in upon seeing what a big deal the White House was making over his case, but he was unsuccessful. Instead, his arrest was the subject of one of the most deranged propaganda videos I've ever seen in my life, certainly ever seen put out by the U.S. government. It looks like a scene from Narcos or maybe a Paul Verhoeven film like RoboCop. What appears to be about a dozen heavily armed FBI agents and U.S. Marshals with body armor and riot shields storming a luxury condo building in Washington's West End to detain a guy in jeans who is obviously not resisting in any way, all because he is accused of throwing a sandwich. And here's the kicker. Today we learned that federal prosecutors were not able to convince a grand jury to charge him with a felony. A group of his peers simply refused to buy the government's ginned up case. And to be clear, in normal times, it is extraordinarily rare for a grand jury to refuse to approve an indictment. The deck is heavily stacked towards the prosecutors in these situations. There's the old cliche, right? You could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. And yet, the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. could not get a grand jury to indict a guy for throwing the sandwich. This isn't an isolated incident. Earlier this week, we learned that same U.S. Attorney, Jeanine Pirro, last seen on Fox's The Five, that her office similarly failed to get a felony indictment against a woman who's alleged to have tried to block ICE from detaining someone. Not one, not two, but 3 grand juries refused to sign off on felony charges in that case.
I guess you could say justice is now being served up like a fast food slogan. Great marketing for the headlines, but nothing more. The truth is, this was always just a publicity stunt from the Trump team. Sending a crowd to someone's door just to make a flashy social media moment doesn't make anyone safer. It's pure theater. And that's exactly the problem. They care more about PR than real solutions. Governor Wes Moore pointed that out once again, and he's absolutely right.
Once again, the president's showing that this is not about policy. This is not about supporting your people. This is not about what it's going to do to port workers and small businesses. This is an ideology. And it's a deeply dangerous ideology. And frankly, again, something he's talking about pulling that he did not give us in the first place. And that's why I tell our people, do not let someone take your power who did not give it to you in the first place.
We can't afford to be timid when it comes to talking about crime. Democrats shouldn't feel the need to qualify every point with but or hesitation. The truth is simple. Donald Trump doesn't care about reducing crime. He's not solving it, and he's not even trying to. Meanwhile, Democrats are the ones actually working on real solutions that keep communities safe. Trump has a long record of empty talk and false promises. We can't let people forget that. And we're going to keep calling it out every step of the way. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you made it all the way to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments to let us know you're with us. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I will see you soon.